Westplex 107.1, it is BS in the Morning, and I am Shelley, she is Brad, and we are here. At least I think we are, aren't we?
Yeah, we're here.
Hey, you're
So, she's the dance monkey girl.
Yeah?
We're the mic monkey.
We're the mic monkey. Okay, they always talk about someone who comes out with a hit and comes from nowhere. Tones and I is her name. Do you think with the voice she does in that, and I don't know if that's the way she sings all the time, do you think there'll be a second hit for her?
I do.
You do? Okay.
She's got a cute little voice. I mean, I don't understand the song too much because I still can't hear the word monkey.
It's in there. Once. Well, and the goofy thing about it is, if you watch the video is just like, okay, I don't get it. You know,
is it a dancing monkey?
No, it starts out with an old guy in like a retirement home, and he's in like a wheelchair, and they wheel him in, and the attendants are like, okay, hey, what can we do for you? And he's like some feeble old dude, and then he escapes from the retirement home, and he ends up on a golf course with a bunch of his buddies, and it just like, okay, I don't get it. What does it have to do with Dance Monkey and all these little, crazy things happen on the golf course, and, all these old guys are making fun of all the young people on the golf course, and there are these obviously sexy-looking women that end up dancing with the old dudes. I mean, it's like, okay, and then and the end of it is he's back he's back in the rest home. It's like, okay, I don't quite get it. It's like
he was thinking about how it used to be.
No, because he was in real time. In other words, it wasn't like they were like young looking. It wasn't like they had old actors and then they ended up in the golf course as young guys. It was like real time. In other words, that he snuck out of the retirement home, met up with his buddies, all his old buddies at the golf course, and then they were making fun of all the young people. Like they were cutting in front of them with the golf cart and stuff like that. It just
because that's what young people do to them.
Well,
that's karmic payback.
I guess, but it's to the point where like, okay, I don't, and unless she's like an extra in there somewhere, or she's one of the nurses or something like that, I don't think she's in there. So the whole video is like, okay, it's like I don't get it. Now certain videos, it's to the point where there are these producers that put together some of these music videos who are going like, okay, we're really going to baffle everybody with this one. You know what I mean? It's to the point where it's like it makes no sense on purpose, if you know what I'm saying.
It does.
Yeah. So anyway, how's your weekend?
No sense on purpose. Sounds like me, doesn't it?
No. How was your weekend?
It was actually a lovely weekend.
You went to an event on
Saturday night.
And what was the name of that group again?
It was called the Sweetheart Soiree by We Love St. Charles.
We Love St. Charles. And
yes, it was one of their fundraising galas.
And it's the Sweetheart Soiree?
Yes.
And it was like
it's in February.
But it was a Valentine's kind of deal?
theme. It was lovely.
It was a Valentine's kind of deal?
No, it was actually a Roaring 20s thing.
Oh.
So I dressed up for the Soaring 20s.
Oh, God, here she goes with her Soaring 20s again.
It's going to catch on, and I'm going to take credit for it.
Have you bought the domain name? Somebody already has that. I'm almost positive. I'll check in a minute. But that would be one of those that, it's just like I told you. What was it, the one that that it came out in the presidential, and something came out where President Trump said something which was sort of funny. And I remember I said to you, oh, man, I'm going to buy that domain. And when I looked for the domain, it had already been bought, and it had been bought by the DNC. And when you went to it, it forwarded to their campaign site for the Democrats. I'm like, okay, somebody in the Democrats is thinking quick on their feet on that one. But, one of those things. So it was, where was it at?
It was at the Foundry Arts Center.
I like the Foundry Arts Center.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, if you've never been there.
And then they had a speakeasy room, that had, it was catered by Tompkins, down on Main Street.
Oh man, they are.
And also the same people own the Rack House, Wine Kitchen Whiskey over in Cottleville.
So it's the Tompkins Rack House people. They're great advertisers of ours.
Yeah, well, I'm working on that, but I will tell you that everything was fabulous, and they have their own special reserve from Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
And it was lovely.
I and once again, I'm not much of a drinker. And I know people talk about, well, I only drink this kind of whiskey or only drink this kind of vodka. And to me, it's like I don't drink a lot, but I drink amaretto. And I found this, normally that Amaretto di Serrone is expensive. It's like for what is it, a 250 milliliter bottle or something like that, small bottle. It's like $26, okay?
Yeah, it's expensive, but it's delicious.
I found a gas station that sells a bottle of it, like not a fancy bottle, but like sort of real plain Jane kind of whiskey kind of bottle, one of those kind of bottles. And it's $6. And it's made in St. Louis. I'm going like, and I've actually asked a couple of my people that are in the, in the know in the liquor business, and I go, okay, there's this amaretto that's made, and they look at me like, there's no amaretto made in St. Louis. I go, here's the bottle. I took a picture of it and showed it to one of my friends, and I said, okay, explain this to me. And he looked at it and he goes, I have no idea. I have no idea who would be doing that.
It's just not Di Serrano.
No, it's just it's like a plain label. It's like it's like Joe's Amaretto. You know what I mean? It's like and I've had people who have had it and have told me it's really close to the good stuff. Now I can't tell. I don't.
Did you get it?
What?
Did you get it?
Oh, I've had a bottle of it. Yeah, I mean, like one night I had a whole bottle. No, I bought it. I haven't had it.
It was a hard day's night.
Yeah, I haven't had it. I see. Me, I'm not much of a drinker, and
you're not a drinker at all, practically.
Well, I only drink when I mean, there's two things that happen to me. I was a police dispatcher. I put myself through college as a police dispatcher, and unfortunately, that was back in the day when there was no Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and there was tons of drunk driving. Tons.
Yes.
There was a situation in Illinois where the drinking age was 19 for wine and beer, and on any good, almost on any Friday and into Saturday night, from like about 11 o'clock to like 2, 3 in the morning, there were always accidents on westbound 270. All the Missouri kids coming from back from the bars and in Edwardsville and Collinsville are coming back from the bars.
Stages.
Yeah, are coming back from the bars in East St. Louis, are coming back from the bars, on 5570 or on 255 JB Bridge, coming back from the bars in Columbia and Waterloo and places like that. And I saw so much carnage, and I was the guy typing the reports. And it wasn't unusual to have, unfortunately, fatal accidents. And, I'm the guy. I'm going, oh, man, this is not good. So then if that's not bad enough, then I started to fly helicopters. And one of the things is, one of the aviation little acronyms, or whatever you want to call it, is 8 hours between bottle and throttle. So I got to the point where you
mentioned that the other day.
Oh yeah. The only time I would ever drink something would be like if I'm in for the night and I'm not going anywhere. To the point where it's like okay, I'm done. I'm not going anywhere. Maybe I'll have a couple glasses of amaretto on the rocks, and I'm done. And that's it. And if I go out in public, because of the fact that I don't drink anything when I'm out in public, like because of the fact that I'm always afraid that I'm the guy that's going to have like one drink, and because I don't drink that much, I'm going to have one drink, and I'm going to pull out of the parking lot, and I'm going to get pulled over, and I'm going to, because the .08, because my body doesn't metabolize it, then I'm going to be a DWI, and that's the last thing I ever want to have happen. I value my driver's license. My teacher friends, I tick them off because I always make fun of them.
No,
teachers.
I can't imagine.
Oh yeah, I always make fun of them, and they'll always say to me, and this always backfires. I'm like, well, you can probably name me things that you do every day that you learned. I go, you're right, and I agree with you. And they go, well, name them. I go, driver's ed and typing. Because I drive every day and I type every day. I
get kicked out of driver's ed.
I don't use geometry every day. I don't use, I guess I use English to a certain extent. I don't use, I took French and German. I don't use that on a daily basis. I don't use hardly anything on a daily basis except driving, driver's ed, and typing. We had a great driver's ed teacher. Mr. Salinardi. He was this Italian guy. Took it in summer school, man. And we had one of the kids in our car was just horrendous. And we ended up in a couple people's front yards whenever he'd drive. I mean, because
I never did that, but I failed the test.
Oh, the driver's ed test?
Because when I was backing up, I used my rearview mirror instead of looking back and checking all the sides.
That's a no-no. Yep.
And I was like, big old F-bomb.
Well, this guy, when he would make a turn, you know how you turn the wheel, and then as you're through the turn, you recover, you come back the other way?
Yeah.
He wouldn't do that. He would just keep the wheel turned. So in other words, if we made a right turn, like in a subdivision, he just kept the wheel turned, and we'd end up in somebody's front yard. This happened several times. And
it sounds like how I learned to ride my motorcycle.
I don't even know if I want to hear that.
Well... So I didn't know how to ride. I had never, I got kicked out of the rider's ed course because I kept on dropping the bike. Every time I come to a stop, I would drop the bike, and it would like fall on top of me. It wasn't my bike; it was one of their starter bikes.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I'm gonna get this. So I sat there and I practiced going. I drove 35 miles, not per hour, but 35 miles total in my
subdivision
neighborhood. Yes.
Yep.
And I still kept on dropping this bike. And then that was my bike. And that weighed 666 pounds dry weight. Anyway, I was able to get it back up. And I went out to the Traycon over at Research Park because I just couldn't handle it. My body couldn't handle it anymore, dropping this bike on me. So David, my husband, rode it out to Research Park. And he's like, okay, you need to show me what you're doing. And so I did, and I got out of eye range, and I dropped the bike. And
well, didn't you do the left foot deal? Or you know what that's all about with motorcycles, right?
No.
Yeah, the left foot. That's what they teach you to do. Is because you come to a stop, you put your left foot down because your right foot's on the brake. So, you got the handbrake on the right side, the front brake on the right side, which is on the handlebar, and then you got the rear brake, which is, pedal on the right side. So as you're approaching a stop, you're supposed to put your left foot down. So when you come to a complete stop, your left foot, hits the ground first, and then, with your hand still on the handbrake on the handlebar, you put your right foot down and steady yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I wasn't doing that.
Obviously.
When I would come to a stop.
Were you falling over to the left or the right, or different every time?
It doesn't matter. I wasn't putting my feet down.
Oh, well, that doesn't work.
I would come to a stop.
If you ever ride a bicycle, it's the same thing on a bicycle. When you come to a stop, unless you're
I was concentrating on all the things that you had to do.
Oh, man. And you're the ones that drive. You probably passed me on the highway. I'm going like, oh, my God.
No. As soon as I learned that I wasn't putting my feet down, I would sit there and I would crawl, on the bike, and I would just go to a crawl and then practice putting my feet down, and ride to a crawl and practice putting my feet down. And I did that for 35 miles. I actually became a better rider than some of the men.
I don't doubt that.
And I put 11,000 miles on my bike.
I don't doubt that at all. There's some men out there that are pretty bad on motorcycles.
Well, that's because they're usually drunk.
I shouldn't tell this story. If my kids were listening, my two youngest sons, for a while I had a couple dirt bikes. I love dirt bikes, and I'd take them down to the transmitter site and I'd ride my dirt bike. And I took my sons down there once, and neither of my sons had ridden a motorcycle. So I'm going like, okay, here's how you do it. Here they're showing the foot, all the kind of stuff. And as I took off from a stop, I fell down, and my sons are both going like, okay, Dad, thanks for the lesson.
Way to go. I feel so empowered.
And I don't think I'd ever done that before. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm going to do it in front of my kids. Okay, sons, here's how to do it. You got the clutch here, and, you put it in first gear, and you let the clutch out. And as you start to move, you bring your feet off the ground, and you accelerate with the accelerator, and the handle grip and all that kind of stuff. And here I went about 20 feet and fell down. So, yeah, my son still remember that. Hey, we've got issues this morning with the computer system, so we're going to take a break here, and we may be back sometime before 8 o'clock. It's 6:24. Westplex 107.1, Bernie Sanders' favorite song?
Havana?
You know what happened over the weekend. He was on 60 Minutes last night, and this is what's sort of fascinating about the internet and things like that. Be careful of what you say, because decades later it'll come back to haunt you. That apparently
that is so true.
Yeah, no kidding. He made a speech in 1986 at some university in Vermont, and he praised Castro in Cuba, about how good that essentially communism and socialism was in Cuba. That if you know the whole deal when Castro took over, and he was essentially the iron dictator for like 50 years, and keep in mind, if you've ever seen streets in Cuba, in Havana, the cars looks like they're filming a TV series from the 50s because all the cars are like 40s and 50s cars because they're no longer allowed to import new cars. So all the cars, like the newest car, like in Havana, is like something like from like 1962, and that's it. And
how cool would that be?
well, no, it's terrible because of the fact that they can't
terrible?
they can't get parts. They literally are making parts there to keep these cars going because they won't import parts. So anyway, Bernie was on there talking about, hey, great, Havana, Cuba, Castro did all sorts of great things. I'm going like, yeah, Castro. The guy who, if you didn't agree with him, he lined you up and in front of a firing squad and shot you. I mean, okay, that's great, yeah. And the economic of reality of Cuba is like horrible. I guess, God, I don't want to get into politics, but I'm going like, okay.
And yet we always seem every day.
I mean, here's what I don't get. And I know all sorts of people, oh, man, Bernie Sanders. And I'm going like, okay, you realize that the reason we have this great economy and the reason that you live in a nice house and the reason that you drive a nice car and that, you send your kids away to a good college is because of capitalism, not socialism. But the whole idea behind socialism is everybody's equal. But what always has gotten me about that is like, let's say a union, okay? And I'm not making fun of unions because I was in a union twice. But the idea behind a union is everybody's equal. If you're a journeyman electrician, you're as good as any other journeyman electrician. But if you go on the job site and there's like, let's say there's 10 journeyman electricians on the job site and you go up to one of the guys and say, hey, who's the best electrician here? He's going to say, oh, that's Jim. He's better than all of us. You know what I mean? The idea is everybody's equal, but that's not the case. It's just like, you and I. I'm not the best, guy at doing, at dancing. I'm terrible at dancing. But that would be like, okay, well, everybody's going to learn how to dance. Well, I don't even want to learn how to dance.
You could do the get up.
Yeah, I could get no. I know that's actually sort of hard to do. What are you talking about? I can't do any of that kind of stuff.
My flash mob was actually teaching that last weekend. I didn't go because I had two things to do, but on Saturday. But they were showing us how to do the get up.
Well, anyway, the Bernie thing is to the point where I have to tell you, I'm thinking to myself, first off, here we go again. It's like, is this going to be an interesting election year? Because if it ends up to be Bernie and Trump, and here's the interesting part of it is that the Democrats have been saying, we need new, fresh blood. We need young leaders. Well, they're all out of it now. The only person left in the Democratic, primary is Buttigieg. And I keep thinking about that. I overthink that. I remember when he first got popular and one of his aides said, here's how you pronounce his name, Boot, and then edge twice. Boot, edge, edge. Boot,
edge.
Yeah, boot, edge. That's what they said. And you say it, you edge twice. And if you sort of slur it, it's like, it becomes boot, edge. But it's boot, edge, edge. And I'm going like, okay, how do you get that out of his name? I look at that and go like, but he's the only young guy. Everybody else is like old guys. Old guys. Biden's 77, Bernie's 78, Elizabeth Warren's in her 70s.
Most of them, with the exception of, I think Barack Obama was the youngest one since Kennedy.
Yeah, he was, and some people will say, that was sort of a fluke. I'm not saying anything bad about Barack Obama, but it was, if you remember, he wasn't supposed to be the Democratic candidate. It was supposed to be Hillary, and here
Hillary,
we go again. Yes.
Yeah.
And he lost in the primary, or she lost in the primary. So anyway, if like I said, if you watch that, and you look at the news this morning, that's all that's on the news. Matter of fact, I look at a bunch of different websites in the morning, trying to not be biased. And if I just pick one, let me see, here's one right. Bernie Sanders defends Fidel Castro's socialist Cuba. Unfair to simply said everything is bad. Well, that's true. That's like, if you said, hey, I think that, the clubs in Sauget are all bad. No, there's some good things about the clubs in Sauget. They got ice in the drinks, stuff like that.
You got ice in the drinks. You got plenty of glitter.
Right. There's some good things about the parking's free. You know what I mean? As opposed to downtown.
So there's always pops.
Right. Yeah. You can't say, it's like saying, a Yugo was a bad car. Yeah, it was a bad car. But yet there's a couple redeeming factors that it had four wheels.
My biological father, my daddy, he drove a Yugo.
Horrible cars.
He loved it.
Yeah, but
it was right. It was red.
Yeah,
he had
but
a Mercedes convertible.
How long did he?
But he got this Yugo,
How-
and he sat there and he drove it everywhere. And people, he owned a restaurant down in Clayton.
But how long did he drive it though? How many years? That was the problem with the Yugos. They didn't hold up.
No, well, they were disposable cars.
Well, yeah, but who wants that?
Well, he loved it, and the reason he quit driving it was because people told him, if that's all you can afford is a Yugo, we're not eating here.
Well, but the problem
because he was a 5-star restaurant.
See, I'm a practical, at least try to be a practical kind of guy, and I always look at cars. And I don't look at them as like, oh, isn't it a cool car? I do look in that respect, but I always look at it as like, okay, how easy it is to service. I mean, God, I know guys who are mechanics, and they tell me, horror stories about things that used to be really, really simple to do. I mean, like, it's just like, okay, it takes you 10 hours to get down to the part of the engine you need to repair. It's just like me with my one car. I got a problem with the heater core is bad in it. I don't have any heat in it. And the part's $157, but if you take it to the dealer, it's $2,000 labor to pull the whole dashboard out. They got to disable the airbags because it's got airbags, it's got front airbags and side airbags. They got to disable the airbags. They have to take the steering wheel out because, the dashboard won't come out unless the steering wheel's off. And they have to disassemble everything, the air conditioning system, all the controls, the radio, all that stuff has to come out. And it takes like 6 hours for them just to pull the dash, and then, the repair on the heater core is like an hour, and then it takes like 4 hours to put everything back in. So it's like a day and a half of labor. And it's like, okay, why did they do that? Well, because they're just cramming stuff into cars. And the serviceability on is like terrible. I mean, my other car, my Volkswagen.
That's because people want more and more and more, and they're trying to accommodate. But with that accommodation,
no,
comes it's like the law of unintended consequences.
No, they're designing to be obsolete. They're designing them to be to the point where if you have a car, I mean, like with me, I have never, knock on Formica, I've never blown an engine in a car, and I got cars that got 300,000-400,000 miles on it. But it's always what kills me in the cars is all the little stuff that goes wrong. The heater switch doesn't work. The heater core goes out. The air conditioner compressor
needs preventative maintenance, Brad.
Yeah, but the problem is that it's those things that end up sort of nickel and diming you to death. I mean, those are the things that ultimately, like, okay, I'm not putting, it's one of those things. I mean, that's how I got my one car. I mean, the car that unfortunately I got hit by a tractor trailer in. That car was sold to me by a very nice lady who the air conditioning went out on it, and the same deal. She said it was going to cost like, I don't know, $18,000, $19,000, $2,000 to fix the air conditioner. And she just said, I'll just buy a new car. And essentially she showed me what the blue book in the car was, and she deducted $2,000 for the air conditioner repair. And I bought it for like, I think $800. I was like, man, I love that little car.
And you love that little car.
But once again, it didn't have air conditioning. It had great heater.
But it had a sunroof.
Yeah. Well, only car I've ever had a sunroof. Hey, by the way, the weather today, unfortunately, we can't get Jennifer. She's having a little extended vacation right now. Weather today is going to be, the temperature right now is pretty much where we're going to be. It's 45 degrees outside. The high is only going to be 48, so it's pretty much going to stay this temperature all day long. Going to be cloudy, and starting, matter of fact, right about now, 7 o'clock, supposed to have rain. And matter of fact, rain all through the day up until about even some thunderstorms this afternoon. Probably by about 10 o'clock tonight. Hopefully the rain should be out of here. But pretty much rain all day long. So just be prepared for that. Are you excited? You pumped?
About the rain?
Yeah, about the rain.
Yeah, so I can look like a wet, drowned puppy all day. That's awesome.
Yep, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. 641, Westplex 107.1. Good morning to you. It is the 24th day of February. This is leap year, so we have one more day. It's not the end of the month on Friday. It's the end of the month on Saturday, which is the 29th. I always wished I was born on then. I had a kid I went to school with that was born on the 29th on a leap year. I always thought that would be cool.
I always wanted to be born on leap year as well. I missed it by a scotch.
I have 2 questions for you, okay? And I want honest answers from you. Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I heard something over the weekend, an ad for a jewelry store. Not going to say which one because I'm not trying to pick on them. But the lady was talking about like, oh, I was so happy that my boyfriend got engaged with me. And what I was even more happy was he got me a conflict-free diamond.
Okay, so is that the
Okay, if your
Those
husband,
are the
if
what
you-
is it? The African
well,
conflict.
it's the supposedly the diamonds that are not mined in countries that are, at war. I mean, essentially, that kind of stuff, conflict free.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if
So does that mean that it was grown in a lab?
I know it was from a country that wasn't in a war, but the point being is,
Kind of like PETA approved?
well, let's say your husband gave you a nice new ring with a diamond in it. Would you say, honey, I love it, but where'd the diamond come from? Is it conflict free? Would you do that?
No.
Well, I'm thinking that
No, I have to say no, I would not.
I'm thinking that 99 out of 100 women would say the same thing. Like, oh, it's a diamond, I mean, and I get
It's
there's
a pretty and it's shiny.
well, I get that some people are in the mode of, they want to be socially correct and I get it. I mean, and I'm not making fun of them. That's, that's what, hold on, I got to do something here. Oh, darn it. Hold on. I got a problem. And I'm trying to do two things at once. I'm trying to fix update and restart. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, I have a problem with the computer. I'm just going to reboot it. Anyway, that's the thing that sort of caught me. But like, I'm thinking, okay, and I got a feeling there's some women or some men too that would not, like they're going to ask if they went to the jewelry, where'd this diamond come from?
Well, first of all, if my husband got me a really expensive ring, I would actually, I wouldn't enjoy it because I've already got so much jewelry that I don't need any more. And he knows that about me.
Okay. I just was curious because, like I said, I mean, the commercial made it out to be that, like, oh my God, it's beautiful, but more importantly, it's conflict free. Okay, whatever. Okay, here's
PETA approved. Yeah.
yeah. Here's the other one. Okay, they're talking about the caucuses over the weekend in Nevada, and I'm listening to a news report actually on NPR, and the lady called Nevada the minority majority state.
What does that mean?
Well, it took me a minute to think about it. I'm going like, hold on a minute now. Essentially, what they're saying is the minorities, the blacks and the Latinos and all the other different minorities, there's more minorities than there are white people. So it's the minority majority. So that's to me, that's sort of like saying, fast car with no engine. It's like, okay, so hold on. How could it be a fast car if it doesn't have an engine? To me, it's like, I get what they're saying, that in most states still the majority of the people are white, but yet if you are in the majority in that state, if you're Latino or black, aren't you then a majority? Aren't you, doesn't that make you the majority and the white people are the minority?
Yeah, but I don't think that counts like that.
Well, I thought it was interesting.
I was just processing what you were saying. That's why it took me so long to respond.
Minority majority state. And once again, when I heard that, I thought to myself, okay, I get what they're saying, but is that the best way to put it? And they talked about how Bernie, was very popular with the minorities, but the problem is not the problem, but the situation in Nevada is that the minorities are the majority. So they're saying that's why he did well in Nevada, and that was one of the things they were saying was going to happen with Biden because the minorities, the black people like him, but yet apparently they didn't like him enough because I think he came in second or third or something like that. But anyway,
the only reason why the minorities that are the majority like him is because he has hairy legs that turns blonde in the sun.
Unfortunately, my computer is rebooting, so I can't play that right now. Otherwise,
I just did it for you. It's my rendition of Bernie Sanders.
Hold on, let me type something here. I'm trying to get this computer back up. Okay, let's see if that's going to work. No, hold on a minute. I'm trying to do two things at once, which doesn't work. Okay, nope. Incorrect password. God, don't you hate it? Hold on a minute. DERWER. Now people know my password. There we go. Okay, there's that. No, I don't want that. The computer is coming back up. High's going to be 45. We're at 43 right now. Or excuse me, high's going to be 46. We're at 44 right now. I just looked at it. And it's still screwed up. Gosh. don't know what the heck's going on with this. Driving me nuts this morning. Okay, we're going to take a break. And the computer should, if I hit this, it should play commercials, and we'll be back. It's 6:55. Westplex 107.1 and the Donut Liquor. Yes, boyfriend. Good morning to you.
Oh, would you stop that?
I know you get a kick out of it.
Oh, my goodness.
The Donut
Just
Liquor.
Stop it.
Isn't that, what's the real name? Donut? Oh, hold on. It's a Donut Liquor? I don't know her real name. What's her real name?
I don't know.
It's Donut Liquor. That's what it is.
No, it's not.
Weather today, rain, 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 rain. You probably already know that. It's probably raining where you're at right now. A large band of activity. Matter of fact, it's right now from the St. Louis area all the way back across the state of Missouri and halfway back through Kansas. So that's why we're supposed to have rain all day long, because that's just going to slowly move through the area. Might even have a thunderstorm or two this afternoon, so be prepared for that. Lots of stuff in the news today. First off, you know what's going on today as far as the Los Angeles Lakers. They have the big memorial service for Kobe Bryant and his daughter. It still bothers me that every headline I read is Kobe Bryant and his daughter and 7 other people, and like those other people don't count. That bothers me, and I get
You're
it.
You're not the only person that feels that way, Brad.
I get it that he's the big star and his daughter, because his daughter was, the daughter of him, but there was a pilot and 6 other people on that flight that were killed, and to me,
yes, there were.
It's that's just me. I get it, but yet by the same token, I don't think it's right. But what do I know? Lady vacuuming sidewalk in Yakima, Washington. Okay, we were going to talk about that. Did you hear this story?
Yes.
Did you know what I'm talking about?
I do not.
A guy drove by and he saw a lady with a vacuum cleaner, like the kind you'd use on your carpets, the kind with a handle and you roll back and forth on rollers, okay? And she's out vacuuming her sidewalk. So he takes a video of it and posts it. Oh, look at this lady. She's out vacuuming her sidewalk, and making fun of her and the whole bit. Then, apparently, she heard about this, and she sort of fought back and essentially said, you don't understand what was going on. We're not doing very well. Our next door neighbor gave us a van that he didn't want anymore because we didn't have a car anymore. And our van was sitting in the driveway, and somebody lost control of their car and drove across our lawn and smashed into our van and broke out one of the windows and then took off. So it was a hit and run. And now the van that they got donated by their neighbor is no longer, it can't be driven anymore because it's essentially totaled. It's an older van. And she was out there cleaning up the glass from the fact that her van got crunched. And that's why she was out there with the vacuum cleaner.
There's a lot of truth to you never know what's going on in another person's pair of mismatched socks.
Right. And then the guy, when he found this out, he apologized to her and was like, Did
he buy her a new car?
No, but here we go again, which is good. Kickstarter came along and they started up a Kickstarter campaign to buy them a new car. Well, not a new car, but, a car. And, it's one of those things where you see things sometimes you go, oh, look at that. There's somebody out there vacuuming there. Although, when you think about that, that if you've ever had glass that I have a vacuum cleaner that I bought years and years and years ago, which is a really cool vacuum cleaner. It's an upright vacuum cleaner, and it's an industrial upright vacuum cleaner, and it has what's called a clean-out port in it. And it's designed for use in environments where you could pick up little pieces of, in a manufacturing environment where you'd pick up little pieces of metal or, little chunks of wood and stuff like that. And instead of the stuff being sucked into the vacuum cleaner and then going through the motor and tearing up the motor, there's this low spot on the side where the heavy things settle. And there's a little port, a little access port that you open up. And if I accidentally, vacuum up a penny or something like that, it ends up in this little port. And you turn the vacuum cleaner off and you take the little thing out the side and you pull the, whatever's in there. It's laying right down there. You just slide it out and you go back to business. And I've actually used that outside. Because I had a similar situation where I had a window that got broken, and it was a car window. And if you know about the not the front windows, but the side windows, most cars that when they shatter in little tiny pieces. You get showered.
Shards.
Yeah,
They're
little. Yes, exactly, little tiny pieces. So you don't have any big pieces of of glass that would ultimately get you like a knife or anything like that. And
correct.
I did that once, but I used my industrial vacuum cleaner. I just went out there. People go, why don't you use a shop vac? Well, the idea behind this is that it's got the beater bar on it, and it gets everything. This thing is super vacuum cleaner.
It doesn't sit there and, when you go through it, it doesn't sit there when the beater bar, touches the debris. It goes,
well, what's all
spits it out all over?
No. And what's also cool about this is that this vacuum cleaner has a dust cup. It doesn't have bags. It's got a dust cup. And years ago, when I first bought it, and once again, I don't want to say how much I paid for it. I paid a lot of money for it. Actually, at one point in time, I had two of them because I found one used and I bought it because I like my other one so much. My next door neighbor saw me use it once, and she said, "Is that really a good vacuum cleaner?" And I go, "Yeah, it's a really good vacuum cleaner." She goes, "Well, I've got a very expensive vacuum cleaner, and could I just try it once?" I go, "Yeah." So I let her use my vacuum cleaner, and she got all upset because since it has the dust cup, I cleaned it out. And when I gave it to her, and after she had vacuumed her floors, she used my vacuum cleaner and got a bunch more dust. You know, I mean, literally, she'd vacuum her floors like that morning, and then she used mine in the afternoon. So it wasn't like a ton of dust got in there, like in 5 or 6 hours. And she was like super embarrassed. "Oh my God, I spent you don't know how much money I spent for that vacuum cleaner, and your vacuum cleaner is so much better." I go, "It's an industrial."
Is it a rain glow or rainbow?
No, it's a Hoover. It's a Hoover. It's
a Hoover.
Yeah, it's an industrial vacuum cleaner. It's what it's for. It's for if you ever see like the crews, like in office buildings, this is the vacuum cleaner. I
actually used to be a crew for McDonnell Douglas.
Well, this is a heavy-duty vacuum cleaner, and it's built to be used 4, 5, 6 hours a day. Whereas most of your vacuum cleaners aren't. They're not designed for that. They're designed to use it maybe once a day for 20 minutes or something like that if you vacuum up your floor. So anyway, that's my industrial vacuum cleaner. See, I like industrial stuff. I like stuff that's
you're
built.
Like Tim the Toolman Taylor.
No, I like stuff that's built to What was that again?
I'm not going to say it.
Do it one more time. Come on.
It's not happening.
Come on, do it one more time so I can get it in another drop. Come on.
That's a hard no. Move on.
So it can be some of like my favorites, like this one.
Like the ones. Yeah, not going to happen.
Like this one.
They don't have dog catchers in the government.
All right.
I know you love that. I
that.
still don't know why.
And then Shelley was, believe it or not, you don't realize this, but Shelley was actually on the broadcast yesterday for the ESPN Fox broadcast of the Battlehawks in downtown St. Louis at the Dome.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, she was on the broadcast, and one of the play-by-player guys said, "Shelley, what would you do in this position if you were a Battlehawk?" And she said,
"Draw back 2 and punt." Okay, smarty pants.
Draw back 2 and punt.
And so I know what it is now, but now I just don't say it just because you've made a point out of it.
You think?
I know. Laws are made to be broken.
Yep, that's Shelley. My all-time new favorite is...
What does the fox say? Well, that is what the fox says according to the song.
Well, you think that's the truth? You think that's the truth? Well, you know what you are?
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Pony soldier.
That's what you are. Over the weekend, I listen to all sorts of different radio, and I listened to KWMU, NPR, and they had a really, really interesting. It's this guy by the name of Guy Raz, and he does this thing because what's it called? I Built This Company or something like that. And they had the story on the beginning of Cisco Systems, which now makes all sorts of computer stuff and is a multi-million billion-dollar company and make phone systems and all of that kind of stuff. And it was started by a husband and wife couple, and it was really fascinating. And they did the show with the woman who was the start of it, and talked about how she used to hang out with all these computer nerds, and ultimately she married her husband because he was the ultimate computer nerd, and how the company essentially was stolen from them. It's pretty interesting. Hello?
I didn't petty fog on that at all.
What's that?
I said there was no petty fogging on that comment at all.
About what? The company was stolen from them?
Yeah.
Well, they ended up with $170 million, but essentially what happened was they couldn't get financing, and they went to a venture capitalist, a VC guy, and he did financing, but essentially took the controlling interest of the company away from them. They didn't really realize what was going on, and then they fired him. And here's the thing was, they had a deal where they were going to be vested in the companies. In other words, they got this financing, and they had 4 years until they were going to be vested in the company, and then they could essentially walk away with, like a really nice, chunk of stock and a payout. Well, after 2 years, the woman, the wife, got fired because of the fact that they thought that, once again, she's talking about, hey, they'd fire the woman, but they're not going to fire the guy. And and she went down the hall and told her husband, I just got fired. And he said, really? And he goes, yeah, I just got fired from my own company. I got fired. And he said, then I quit. And they both walked out together. And see, that was interesting because they didn't think that was going to happen. They thought that she would just, when they fired her, that she would just quit. And her husband would go, well, sorry, honey, but, you can just stay at home now and I'll make all the money. But instead he goes, no, if they fire my wife, I quit. And they both walked out. And it hurt the company because of the fact that the two founders essentially quit in one day. But it was pretty interesting. Talked about how they literally made the first, because the whole thing was they were making routers, computer routers, and they were making the routers in their living room. They were building them in their living room, and that's how that's how they started the company. And they'd get enough money from sales, and then they'd make a bunch of routers, and then they would sell them, and then they would get paid, which would give them enough money to buy more parts, and they'd build another batch of routers, and they'd go out and sell them, and then they'd get paid. And so this is how they kept going. And the problem was that's why they needed financing, because they kept running out of money. Because every time they would go through a build cycle, they would have enough money to build a whole nother, another production run, and then the money was gone. And then they had to wait till they got paid till they got more money in. It's pretty interesting. I know it sounds boring, but it's one of those things.
It really doesn't, actually.
Well,
it does sound pretty interesting.
And if have you ever heard the story of Damon John? The guy on Shark Tank who did Fubu, For Us By Us.
Fubu, For Us By Us.
Yeah, you ever heard the story?
I never have.
My God, what a fascinating story that is. I mean, talking about rags to riches. I mean, and once again, I mean, he was a real hustler. I mean, he worked his butt off. He was working during the day. He was literally sewing hats and some of the shirts that they were selling Fubu, and at night he was a waiter at Red Lobster.
You got to do what you got to do to get by.
And ultimately he actually converted his house. He bought the house from his mom. He lived in Brooklyn, I think, someplace in Brooklyn, and they bought the house from their mom, and he actually took all the furniture out, sold all the furniture, and they filled it with sewing machines, and he hired all these local people to sew all the stuff. And that's how they started the company. They were actually making the stuff in their house in Brooklyn. And then at night he'd go to work he'd do that all day long, and then at night he'd go to Red Lobster and he'd work as a waiter.
Good for him. When I was a single parent, for years, I always had I had a primary job that didn't pay very well, but it had great benefits. But my second job was always, because then I was going to school as well, but my second job was always in the restaurant industry.
Well, there's money to be made. I was a curb boy at Steak and Shake.
Yes, there is.
I averaged $5-6 an hour when the minimum wage was, I think, $1.60. I made more money in 3 nights as a curb boy than the assistant managers made working 5 nights a week. And the nice thing about it was, man, I always had cash. That spoiled me. I think that's why.
That's exactly it.
I think I'm still why I like cash. I don't care what anybody says. I go someplace and I got money and people go, you don't have a credit card? I go, I like using cash. Well, why is that? You get made fun of nowadays. I go, because I like using cash. Because nobody's going to steal my, they're going to steal my credit card number or anything like that. I'm telling you, my goal in life is to go in and buy a car someday with cash. Just walk in, hey, here's a bag of money. I want that car right there.
You think they would let you do that?
Oh, it happens all the time. Talk to any car dealer. There's still old people that come in like that, that some of the people that went through
stuff it in their
no. I mean, like my mom and dad.
Mattress?
My mom and dad went through the Depression, and there are a lot of people that didn't trust banks after all the banks failed. Go watch. It's a Wonderful Life with with
Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart and with Donna Reed. I mean, go watch that. The banks failed, and and if you didn't, people, that was the whole story. People were coming to get their money out of his savings and loan, and they didn't have the money. And that was the whole thing. If you don't have money, what they say. Cash is king. Hey, we got to take a break. We'll be right back. 7:20. Westplex 107.1. Yes, give me everything. Your car keys, all that kind of stuff. Give me your phone.
Just hand it over.
Hand it over, yes. 7:35, it is BS in the Morning. I am S, she is B. Our website is bsinthemorning.show. Weather's coming up with Jennifer
Wojcicki.
And it's sort of a WYSIWYG morning. What you see is what you get. And pretty much what you see right now is rain. And you're going to get that on your head and other parts of your body and your car. It's going to pretty much rain all day long.
Is it really going to rain all day?
Oh, yeah. If you look at on radar, this band of activity goes all the way across the state of Missouri and halfway across Kansas. So
and what's the temperature, please?
Temperature right now is 45. We're only going to get like 46, 47. It's pretty much going to be this. The temperature we have right now is pretty much going to be the temp pretty much all day long until the sun goes down tonight.
Is it muggy?
Well, it's 100% humidity right now because it's raining.
I understand that, but it's like almost 50 degrees. Is it muggy?
I don't know how to answer that. If it's raining...
Okay, never mind.
If it's raining...
When you don't know how to answer something that I've said, that means it was really stupid.
Well...
And we need to move on.
If there were no rain and the humidity was 100%, I'd say, yeah, it's muggy, but it's raining, so I don't think muggy sort of, fits into the equation right at that point.
There's a different kind of... No. Mm-mm. There's rain, and then there's like a muggy rain.
Okay.
It's true.
Okay, Shelley's giving us her definition of rain and muggy rain. Okay. Muggy rain, isn't that where you...
In Shelley world, it makes perfect sense.
Isn't muggy rain where it's raining and the guys mug you for your car keys and stuff like that?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's just a different kind of rain. It's not a refreshing kind of rain. It's not the kind of rain you want to go out and dance in, because I do think that everybody should dance in the rain at least once.
Why?
Because it's just to celebrate life, Brad.
Okay.
That you're up above the flowers as opposed to underneath them.
I do that every morning in my shower. I dance in my shower and, rain comes out of the sprinkler head, the shower head. And, oh, man, I'm dancing in there and slip on the soap and fall down and break my arm.
The Dancing King. Got it.
Yesterday, Battlehawks. First home game, really exciting game. They filled Lower Bowl, and the GM is talking about possibly opening up some seats in the Upper Bowl. They play at home again this coming weekend. So it could be, and what's interesting is it's to the point where it's like the team was really good. And some of the plays were really good. Matter of fact, for the first time in XFL history, one of our guys on the Battlehawks ran back a kickoff for a touchdown. And it was a very exciting play, some really exciting play. And I know that, and there was one thing, did you see this? This is actually sort of cute. There was a girl who had a seat right on the railings, right above the Battlehawk bench. And she had a sign that she says, "I'll trade you a box of Girl Scout Thin Mints for an XFL football." And one of the players went over and gave her a football and took the box of cookies and was handing them out to the players on the bench.
Oh, that is precious.
Now, see, in the NFL, that guy would have been fined. And he would have. He would have been fined.
How dare you approach a child?
Right, and suspended for 2 weeks, because the NFL stands for the No Fun League. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And I think part of it has to do with the fact, come on, I mean, let's be honest. Part of it has to do with the fact that people are showing up for these games because they're sort of like I said it last week, and Shelley got a kick out of it. Third phalanges to Stan Kroenke, right? That's why they're showing up for the games. They're going like, "Hey, buddy, third." And you know what? I had somebody correct me. They said it's not phalanges, it's phalanges. But I always heard it was phalanges.
So did I. Yeah. Heard that from Bones.
Yeah, well, but somebody texted me last week when I said that. I go, "You're not saying it right. It's not phalanges, it's phalanges." But you've heard it phalanges?
I have.
Yes.
By Bones herself.
That's what I heard too. It's called phalanges. But what do I know? I'm just the dumb guy on the radio, right? I don't know anything. Shelley's the smart person. Aviation tag. I saw this last week. It's pretty interesting. There's this company in England, and what they do is when they decommission these aircraft and they send them to the boneyard and they scrap them, they got a deal with, I guess, the company that's scrapping the aircraft, and they cut pieces out of fuselage, and then they make them into key tags, and they laser engrave what plane it was from, the model number, the serial number, when it first entered service, when it was decommissioned. And the interesting thing was last week, they started for the first time an A380, which is the big monster Airbus plane, which was supposed to take over for the Boeing 747. And the Airbus A380 has not been a success. Airbus said they were going to build like 1,200 of them, and they've only built like 200 of them, and they're already scrapping the very first one. And part of it has to do with the fact that these were huge, monstrous aircraft. They were in a certain configuration. They would hold almost 900 people. Can you imagine that? 900 people on a plane?
I really can't. That's like the Titanic of airplanes.
Yeah, it's like a double deck kind of thing, the way the 747 was. But they have not done well, and the very first one has already come. And you know, it's crazy. A lot of times you hear these aircraft that are flying. You know, there's still a lot of DC-3s that are up in the air, and I don't think there's been a DC-3 made since sometime like back in the late 40s, early 50s. I mean, you know, they were around for a long time. A lot of them were used in World War II. I think that was originally designed in the mid to late 30s, the DC-3. And yet this plane, this very first one, this A380, was already scrapped, and it was only like 12 years old. And part of it has to do with the fact that it's not very fuel efficient. And the problem also is it doesn't fit in a lot of airports. It's so big, they can't get it into some of the airports.
Well, they don't have anything to go under.
Well, no, they can't get it. Like, it's so big, there's not enough room. Like with the jetways, you know how they have like the jetways space,
those ramps,
like the gates.
Well,
space.
have them park like general aviation, and have them, you know, put a red carpet down the galleyway or the plank.
I don't think
and just have them go down that way and then walk on the tarmac.
I don't think they allow that anymore in most of the big airports. I think that's since the 9/11 thing. I think that's prohibited. You can't be on the tarmac. You can't.
So is Lambert still considered a large airport?
Well, we got a big Southwest terminal. You know, no.
Yes, we do.
No, it's well, you know that it's not nearly what it used to be, which is sad. You know, in its heyday, Lambert was a top 10 airport. I don't even think we make it in the top 50 anymore. You know, which is and I have friends of mine that fly in O'Hare, and they complain, oh my God, O'Hare. I go like, why don't they fly into St. Louis? You know, I mean, you know, first off, we're further south. We don't have all the weather and the winter problems they have up in Chicago. But I don't know. American, you know, when they took over TWA, they pretty much, you know, got rid of most of the flights out of St. Louis. And you know, when I was back in the day, when I was flying traffic in a helicopter, that was when Southwest first came into St. Louis, and we'd always laugh about, you know, hey, those little small planes, you know, 737s, you know, were flying around, and now they're the big planes at Lambert. You know what I mean? Because there's no big aircraft anymore. There's not any of the big 757s, or maybe there might be a few, but most of the planes out there are 737s, are the regional jets, you know, the Bombardiers, or the, you know, the small, you know, 40, 50, 60 seat aircraft. And that's pretty much it. Sad. You know, and
it is sad, actually.
We needed that W1W, and that Colonel Griggs. Oh my God, what a guy he was, don't you think?
Colonel Griggs?
Yeah, you know, you don't know who I'm talking about, do you?
Is that the one that was over Lambert?
Talk to anybody who lived in Bridgeton; they'll know who Colonel Griggs is. He was the guy.
Yeah, he was the one that, because you know, if you work for the city, you actually have to live in the city, and the airport is considered in the city of St. Louis. The rest of it
it's owned by the city.
The rest of it around it is St. Louis County.
It's owned by the city.
But the airport itself is considered St. Louis City.
Right. It's owned by the city. Yeah, and that was the controversy that I think he lived in Chesterfield. Wasn't that the deal? I can't remember.
I don't know where the man's residence was, but I know that it was an issue.
Yeah. Well, people made fun of his...
And I knew Lieutenant Colonel Griggs.
They made fun of him because of his mustache. Remember, he had the Snidely Whiplash mustache. Remember that?
He did. Yes. He did, the barrel mustache.
We had the one with...
That's not what it was called. It was called...
No, it's a Snidely Whiplash mustache. You know, he's got the thing that goes on the end where you put the mustache wax on, and you twist it, and it's got like little fins that stick out the side. You know? God, that's what I'm going to do with my mustache. I'm going to make a Snidely Whiplash mustache. Think I look good like that?
Why don't you go ahead and try that and see how it works for you?
That's coming back. I've seen guys wear that recently. You know. I mean,
yes, I know.
One of the ball players had that for a while. One of the baseball players had the Snidely Whiplash mustache, and people were going like, "What's he talking about, Snidely Whiplash?" You know?
Yeah, they don't know who that is.
Anybody under the age?
It's what is it, Morticia? No, Letitia.
No, that was Morticia. That was the Munsters.
No, I know that was Adam's Family,
Adam's Family, right.
Who was that?
I can't remember, but it's Snidely Whiplash. That was Dudley Do-Right. Dudley Do-Right, the Canadian Mountie. Yes,
That's
and
it.
And Snidely Whiplash was always the one who was kidnapping his girlfriend and tying her to the railroad tracks, and then Dudley Do-Right would always come and save her. Yes. And it's not
Save the day.
Yeah.
I have come to save
Here I
the
come
day.
to save the day. People are going like, what in the hell are they talking about, right? It's 7:45. Westplex 107.1. How do you? You like those songs that end on a question, but there's not a complete question? How do you?
Well, it didn't really land on a complete question. It was like, ooh, ah, and then it was done.
What was that again?
Nope. I am wise to you, Brad Hildebrand.
Ooh wah, ooh wah. Let me think about that for a minute. Ooh wah, ooh wah. Okay.
That was the last thought of that.
Ooh wah, ooh wah. Okay. Ooh wah, ooh wah. Ooh wah, ooh wah, oh. And on a farm he had a pig. Ooh wah, ooh wah, oh. With ooh wah.
That's not it.
That's not it? Okay.
No, there's probably something I could come up with, but it wouldn't be fitting for radio. So.
How about over the weekend? Gloria Vanderbilt's son. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
You know who Gloria Vanderbilt's son is? At least one of them?
I'm sorry?
You know who Gloria Vanderbilt's son is?
Young Mr. Vanderbilt?
No, Anderson Cooper. Did you know that?
The talk show guy?
Yeah, that's Gloria Vanderbilt's son. Okay?
So why didn't he keep the name? Didn't want to be associated with a crazy woman?
I don't know. Anyway, he had Blago on, you know, Blagojevich, the former governor of Illinois who just got recently bailed out of jail by President Trump.
Okay.
And
yeah, I heard that, actually.
okay, it was, I didn't see it live because I don't have cable, but I saw the part of the interview. If you can find it, if you can, you know, search it, it's on YouTube. But they had a cuss fest because Anderson Cooper, and it's funny because it reminds of our show. Anderson Cooper, Blagojevich was saying something, can't remember, and Anderson Cooper said, "That's BS," but he didn't say BS, he used the words. And Blagojevich came right back at him and said, "No, it's not BS." But once again, he didn't say the letters, he said the word. And very, shall we say, acrimonious kind of interview. They were really slugging it out and going back and forth because obviously Anderson Cooper, you know how he thinks. He thinks that Blago should still be in jail. And, you know, and once again, the guy gets out of jail. And within 72 hours, he's on TV. And did you see the thing last week?
Yeah,
where,
he didn't let any grass grow under his feet.
Well, but he got out like at night, and the next morning he had a press conference in front of his house, but he kept dabbing blood from his chin. Did you see that thing?
No, I didn't.
He said he cut himself shaving because it's the first time since he's been in jail that he had a sharp razor. And I'm thinking to myself, I never thought of that. How do they shave in jail? How do they shave in prison? Apparently they don't use razors. Maybe it's like electric razors.
Nair
or
and
something
a butter knife?
I don't know. I don't know how they do it. But he talked about how it's been like 8 years since he used a razor, and he was on TV and he kept dabbing away at his chin, which was bleeding. And his wife would say, "You're bleeding again." And he'd dab away at his chin while he's doing this press conference. It's pretty funny. I mean, it wasn't funny, like, but he was like,
Not like funny, ha-ha.
Well, but
funny.
Once again, how many people would go on TV, like talking about, Mr., hey, this is who I am. You know what I mean? I mean, it's to the point where he was just like, hey, here I am. I just shaved this morning and I'm bleeding and I'll talk to you. And he had all the people on his front lawn and he had all the interviews. So it's interesting. Some people think that, you hear the people, he should have rotted in jail. They should have given him life. And other people are going like, and he got sort of overcharged, 14 years, I mean, the whole deal was about the fact that when he was the governor, when Obama became the president, and Obama only served 2 years of his 6-year term. So in a lot
He's the one that tried to sell a seat, isn't it?
In a lot of the states, the governor has the right to appoint a senator, and I think even some states the U.S. representative. If like a position opens up, somebody resigns or unfortunately they die in office, that the governor can do that. And essentially, they had all these wiretaps of Blagojevich trying to sell it, trying to sell it to the highest bidder. Okay, who'll give me $2 million in my campaign fund for the senatorial seat? That kind of a thing. So I mean, and the crazy thing about it is, that happens all the time. I mean, politics, that's the way it happens all the time. Hey, you know what? I'll appoint you to this commission if you send some money to my reelection campaign. You know what I'm saying? All the time.
It does happen all the time.
Yeah.
He just got caught.
Well, yeah. I mean, but one of those things where why were they wiretapping him? I mean, obviously they thought he was up to no good, and when they got the wiretaps, I mean, that's the thing that always sort of spooks me is the fact that if the government wants to get you, they're going to get you. You know what I'm saying? It's like almost, if you ever watch some of these there's this thing called I don't know what's called. It's on with A&E Network, and I don't have cable, so I don't watch it. But there's a bunch of them on YouTube now, and it's called Police Live or something like that. And it's all it is like they bounce around the country. Hey, we're going to so and so. We're going to Louisville, Kentucky, where there's a high-speed chase going on right now. And it really isn't live. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, it'll always say recorded earlier. And sometimes you see these cops pull these people over. And it's almost like, okay, they're sort of, going after him. Okay, what's this? I mean, perfect example, okay? I got a situation where, and I should admit this, in my truck, my pickup truck, I was at a place yesterday that had beer cans laying all over the place. It was, it was a piece of property, and I thought to myself, that looks nasty. And I got out of my truck, and I picked up all the beer cans, I threw them in the back of my truck. And I'm thinking to myself, man, if I were in Illinois and I got pulled over by the cops, I'd get arrested for that. It's illegal transportation in Illinois, even if they're empty.
Did you put them in a bag, or did you just throw them in your truck?
Just threw them in the back of the truck, to the point where I recycle my aluminum. I got a recycling bucket here at the station, and I just throw everything in a bucket, and then I crush it, and then I take it to my recycling place out there in Valley Park, and once again, I mean, people make fun, you're not.
Isn't that a song? Crushing it?
Yeah, crushing it. You're not environmentally correct. Hey, I crush the stuff and I, recycle it, So, and first off, it was littering this piece of property. And second off, it was like, okay, I can make, what are cans, a couple cents a piece, if you get a bunch of them, And they were and first
that's
off,
true.
They were,
every little bit helps.
They were Keystone beer. So, it was some low-life kind of guy because nobody drinks Keystone.
That's like saying nobody drinks Stag. Well, they don't drink Stag, but I used to love Stag.
Remember 905 beer? Remember that was around?
I do not. I only like the Pilsner beers, which is what Stag was.
I wouldn't know the difference between beers. If you put cinnamon in one and peppermint in the other, I wouldn't know the difference. I mean, go like, okay, it tastes like beer to me.
Well, then you need to go to Friendship Brewery and have, because they have the best selection, and they have some really great cider too.
I'm not a beer guy. I've never acquired a taste for beer. I mean, to me, it's just like I'd rather drink, like cheapy soda, like knockoff soda than drink beer. And
well, you do that.
I drink Mountain Dew. I love Mountain Dew. and
then see
and Sundrop.
There's one. No,
Sundrop.
There's one that you can't hardly find anymore. And I don't know what it's called.
Well,
but it was very like Sundrop.
It's only in certain areas. It's out in Franklin. It's been out in Franklin County for a long time. The Pepsi distributor that advertises with us, Hibbler Bottling Company in New Haven, they have a Sundrop. Matter of fact, they used to have. I don't know if you can still get it.
Sundrop. That's it.
Yeah, they used to have Cheerwine too. You ever had Cheerwine? Cheerwine's really good.
Cheerwine?
Yeah, it's a soda. It's someplace out of the Carolinas, and I think you can still get it in some of the gas stations in Franklin County, like in Washington and Union. I believe they still have Cheerwine.
Is it wine?
No, it's a soda. But we did a promotion for them years ago when they first brought it into the St. Louis area, and I mean it's really good. It's like a cola kind of stuff, but it's got like a distinct taste to it. Some people say it's sort of like Dr. Pepper.
Does it taste like cheer?
No, some people say it tastes like Dr. Pepper. To a certain extent, like Dr. Pepper. So,
okay. Well, I've never actually heard of that.
Cheerwine. You know what? I'll try to find some. I'll give it to you. Hey, we got to take a break. We're running behind. It's 8:01. Westplex 107.1. That's going to do it for us. BS in the morning. Another show is in the history books, or in the infamous books. One of the two.
The infamous books.
It's the infamous books. Instead of the famous books, it's in the infamous books. Any last parting words?
I just want to tell everybody it's Monday. It's going to be a great day, even though it's going to be rainy. Don't just pretend like it's sing in the rain. That's what I say.
Got it.
Have a great day, everybody. Looking forward to talking to you tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in today, and peace.
And you're going to say?
Oh, the most important man in St. Charles steps up to the microphone and says...